welcome to another episode of the Pursuing Greatness podcast, the place experts share their wisdom on living well by mastering health, wealth, relationships, and spirit. Before we get started, I want to let you know that the best way to support the show is just to subscribe, like, and share this episode with your friends and family. Also, if you'd like to learn more about how to master life, check out our website at pursuinggreatnesspodcast.com. With that said, I hope you enjoy the episode. We have a very special guest with us today, so grab your pen and paper and enjoy the journey. All right, we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Pursuing Greatness podcast. Today we have with us Jen Coken. Jen is a keynote speaker, imposter syndrome expert, author, comedian, and international executive coach on a global mission to empower C-suite level women to have the audacity to be themselves and to lead without limits. For over 2 decades, she has been empowering them to actually achieve both personal and professional success. When she's not crafting best-selling books or speaking to audiences around the world, you can find her performing stand-up comedy or eating Nutella by the spoonful in the nearest grocery aisle. I love that intro, Jen. Thank you for hopping on the podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I know, and I promise you I was only going to read one of those sentences, but I saw the Nutella thing, and I was like, I love Nutella. I got to get down there. So
I don't know. I don't really go into the grocery aisles and open up a jar. And people have asked me, do you really? They get like offended. I'm like, no, that's just a funny part of the bio. I'm a comedian, remember?
It's a good visual, though. It's a good visual.
Totally a good visual. Sneaking down the aisles with your jar of Nutella.
Awesome. So here on the podcast, we love stories. We like to hear where people have been and how they got to where they are. So why don't you take a step back to the beginning? How did you get? I know it's been a journey. I'm sure you have plenty of stories, but tell us, how's your story got? Where'd you start and how'd you get here?
Yeah, it's really funny. It's been a journey because you're old. No, I'm totally kidding. But that's how I feel. You know, like I wish we had podcasts 30 years ago. My story would be much shorter than it is now, but I'm going to try to kind of I mean, honestly, Gabe, my background's in politics. I had my master's degree in political campaign management and worked in electing people to office and passing legislation. I worked on Capitol Hill. I'm outside of the DC area now. Lived in Colorado, ran for office, ran the Democratic Party for Denver County. Just did a lot of, and worked on environmental issues, and mostly environmental issues, things like clean energy, clean water, stopping coal plants from being built, and really ending poverty issues, ending hunger, looking at how our system works together to provide school lunch and breakfast and emergency food assistance, and working to end homelessness. So really social justice were my issues and still is to this day. I founded an organization and I'm on the board of an organization here in the DC area that empowers kids through tennis and an after school program. So that piece of it is still there. I still am an environmentalist. I'm the one who recycles everything. I don't have composting in my condo, but don't tell anybody. But really it was all in politics. Now, while I was doing all that, I also was leading programs for a big international personal growth and development company called Landmark Worldwide. And they have been around for almost 50 years. We're the ones who coined the whole phrase of personal development, personal growth and transformation. They really made it in the lexicon. Okay. But I was doing that as a volunteer, so to speak, 30 hours a week for 16 years.
30 hours as a volunteer. Wow.
Yeah. But I had so much training and development, and my life was extraordinary because I was being trained to empower others it really is about being at choice. Yeah. Right. No matter how crappy the circumstances, we don't realize it when the circumstances are crappy because we're in the midst of like, oh my God, what, I personally for me, totally. I was diagnosed with breast cancer August 2nd, completely out of the blue. Yeah. Jeez. And my mom died of ovarian cancer. So, for 2 months, I was like, what the F and how am I going to deal with this? And really my job, whether I was doing the coaching back then or now I'm in, have my own practice, right? My own company, is how do I empower people in the midst of any circumstances to be at choice, and be the author of their own story. So when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, it took me a couple of weeks of the shock and that kind of thing to go, okay, well, I'm 5'10" and I have breast cancer. That's what's so. I mean, that's just what's going on. Like, I'm like, pretend like I'm not 5'10". I'd hit my head in a lot of doors, and that sort of thing. It'd be kind of silly. So, okay, now, and one of my mantras has always been deal with the facts, whether I'm working with my clients. And I learned that through my mom's death from ovarian cancer. I wrote a book called When I Die, Take My Panties. That's a memoir. She told me to do that, by the way.
I love it.
It's a memoir about my journey with her, that I thought all the things in my life as a grassroots organizer, passing legislation, riding my bike because I was an endurance cyclist, or riding my bike hundreds of miles over multiple days. I always thought that whole story of mine was preparing me for her ovarian cancer. I'm now crystal clear. Me being with her during her ovarian cancer was preparing me for me dealing with breast cancer, because the lessons I learned there can apply to anybody. Deal with the facts. All our suffering lies in our stories. And the crap inside our head, that is the biggest villain, is the voice in our head and the projections about what if, could it be, worry, 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 worry. Secondly, say everything. Even you got to be willing to say the hard stuff. And most people fail in relationships, businesses, leading companies because they're unwilling to deal with personnel problems. We create distance with each other by having judgments and perceptions in our head that we're projecting on people, and we think it's the truth.
Yep.
So we got to learn how to say everything, but in a loving and kind way. And that's actually how I coach my clients. And I always tell my clients, I was meeting with a guy yesterday who was thinking about hiring me. And I said, look, I'm a really straight talker. If I don't piss you off, or you want to hang up on me or hate me at least a couple times over the 6 months, I'm not doing my job, because I'm going to push you because I know your brilliance, you don't. And my job is to get you to be really congruent with who you are and solid with who you are, and being able to embody and voice the true nature of your leadership. So stick with the facts, say everything, and then empower the patient, because I don't have a choice about my cancer. I totally have choice about my treatment, right? Fast forward, as of today, I'm cancer-free. I had a lumpectomy.
That's
Thank you. It was cut out, and now it's amazing. I mean, it's really incredible. I just met with my doctor yesterday. My margins were clean. I'll have to have some series of chemo and radiation, but that's really to prevent recurrence. But look, I could be under the bed with all this. I had my best months in my business since COVID started in August, the month I was diagnosed. September was a little bit of a wash, but I have a great team around me that I had built a year ago. I was still solo. I was doing everything myself and powering on, and yeah. And I'm telling you, man, my VA is so amazing because he's always wrestling things from me. He's known me a long time, and I called him at one point on I don't know, it was 11 o'clock at night. And I sent him a text and said, he's in Colorado, so he's 2 hours earlier. Can you meet with me tomorrow? Yeah. And I sent him an email and I said, look, I just made a list of 27 things I did today that don't bring me any income, that don't have me working in my zone of genius, that are just stuff that I've got to do. And I need to rehire you to take he's like, right on, let's do it. And that's what but I didn't have that a year ago. So, why I'm saying that is that training, you're like, oh, you were working for free. But for me, the training and development I got out of that was priceless. I have coached upwards of 10,000 people. I have coached everybody from high school students to members of Congress. My favorite place, can't do it now, is to be in front of a crowd of 1,000 or 650 people and transform the entire room by creating an experiential experience, which is stupid, but an experience for people, where they see themselves in others, and I'm able to disrupt and unlock their brain patterns so they see something new about themselves that returns them to their congruent. So all that being said, Politics Forever, wrote this book after my mom died, 4 rewrites in 7 years, finally was about to be released, hired a PR firm to represent me. And the day before the book was set to come out, I got laid off from my job. Right?
Man, that was just the universe telling you, all right, it's time to put everything into practice. Let's do this.
4th job I was laid off of while I was writing the book. Because see, in campaigns though, I'm used to, you have election day, you're done, you take a month off, you go to the next thing. And I'm very entrepreneurial. I'm happiness. You're like, give me 3 bangle bracelets, a cup of coffee, and a piece of paper, and go build a business. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. What do you want to, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? So it took me, my friend's husband called me to return a call, and 5-minute conversation. And I swear, Gabe, by the end of that, by that weekend, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to launch my own company. And that was it. And I am so happy that I did it, because I'm so working in my zone of genius. And when you start a company, I'm in my 5th year now. So that's kind of like a good pivot point, good turning point. So you're kind of figuring out what your lane is, and you're trying stuff and experimenting. And I think that's key for people who are pursuing greatness. You've got to be willing to fail, and fail spectacularly.
Absolutely. And your story, I really like it because there's so many pivots, especially going from from the political campaign. You went from the political campaign to being a coach, to starting your own business, being an entrepreneur. And those, they all kind of had very similar veins in them, but they all take different skills. And so what was the main thing that what was the point where you kind of realized that I need to do this? I need to do, not go after another job. I need to start my own business. And why was that kind of in your mind at that point?
Well, I was paralleling, the politics and the coaching were running parallel, right? So I'm working whatever, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, plus the 30 hours a week of coaching on the most part, right? And there was a point where I began to, the work I was doing was wonderful. And I really got trained in neuroscience and ontology, the study of being, and how to truly be in a group and hear what isn't being said. And I got super trained. I got super trained on the political side too. I have a lot of tenacity and a lot of, what had hit the fan during that time, that if I hadn't been doing my work with Landmark, I never would have been able to be as powerful in the face of it. I completed my tenure as a coach with Landmark in 2015 because I completed with politics. I went to work, I think it was 2015, or 2014, I can't remember, but there was a moment where I realized for myself, politics is a very masculine, energetic feeling. Things are pushing, you're making things happen, which is what, from a conscious male perspective, what men are here to do is make stuff happen. In a sense, if you want to look at stereotypical gender roles, the feminine, the divine feminine really brings this kind of nurturing and intuitive, and not to say that men can't be that, because we all have both sides. But I realized for myself, I had been so trained in that side. I really was interested.
Masculine.
Oh yeah, I wanted to welcome in the divine feminine and have that, and see how I could embody that. And I began to be really interested in embodied leadership and intuitive leadership, and where does that fit energetically with people. And so I began to think about all, mental, emotional, like physical, soul-based, and then intuitive. And I always say to people, the average human has 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day. 80 to 85% are negative and or repetitive. And the other percent of those are still all reactionary. It's all stimulus and response. We're not present, because when we're present, we can really be still and grounded and create from nothing. And when we're present, we have presence of mind, presence of body to be anchored, presence of soul to speak our truth, and presence of our mind, not our mind, but spirit. And you call it spirit, the universe, your God, your dog, I don't care, but that still small voice, to be able to listen to that, to allow it to work through you. So at that moment, I walked into my job, and I had built this whole team of people for a solar company, like a 12-person marketing team. And we were lobbying municipalities to hire us. And I walked in to meet with my boss on a Monday morning, and he just kind of shoves this orange folder at me, and he just says, "I'm sorry, but your services are no longer needed." And he and I had the kind of relationship. I was like, "Get the F out." And he just his eyes got full of tears, and so did mine. He's like, "No, I'm serious." And I was like, "All right, look, who else?" And he told me, I'm like, "I would like to be able to lay them off. I've got a few things to tie up. Is that okay?" He's like, "Absolutely." So I stayed through the end of the day. And then I didn't know what day my book was coming out, but then the next day the book came out. And it was those 4 days, the universe was really tapping. I used to say to my ex-husband, you got to hit me over the head with a 2x4. And he's like, please stop saying that. Because one day a 2x4 is going to come in through the truck window and it's not going to be pretty,
and the universe is
you
going
know?
to be like, you asked.
We will give it. It is, you have said we are an intention fulfilling machine. Therefore, yeah. So I knew there was something here for me to create and to connect with my own soul's purpose. And I don't think you're in your 40s yet, but there's a time for everybody. Okay. Well, usually around 45 to 49, there's a point where people call it the midlife crisis.
Yeah.
I actually call it a soul life crisis. Because if you are not fulfilling what you, in my belief system, what you incarnated to fulfill, then your soul is like, yo, I'm going to send you all these signs. I felt like my soul was like, yo, what's up? I don't know. My soul's like the Beastie Boys. Yo, what's up? I don't know, you know.
You got the bent cap.
Yeah, totally. Like, yo, yeah, exactly. You know, and so in that moment, I realized there was something bigger. Now, initially, I thought it was me to write full time and educate women about ovarian cancer with my book. But I also realized I did not want to sit around and write all day. I'm an extroverted introvert. So I get my energy by being by myself, but being with people and transforming entire rooms and speaking is my passion. I love being with people and empowering people to fulfill on their own destiny. So it kind of morphed into, okay, it's going to be speaking. Okay, it's going to be coaching. All right, who am I coaching? Right, because you can't coach everybody. And it was really women CEOs. And I have a commitment. There's only 12 female CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. That's it.
Oh, wow.
And Rockefeller Foundation has a 100 by 25 campaign, which I am on board with 100 female CEOs by 2025. So that's why I coach women at the C-suite, because most women arrive at the top and go, nobody looks like me. I don't know what to do. How do I move forward with this? Or women who want to be at the top are like, I don't see anybody up there. I don't know that I can kick in that door.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So I'm really interested in kind of your view on, because you said something earlier about the differences between not men and women, but masculinity and femininity. And it kind of irks me when people try to put, men and women are the same. There's no differences. And to me, it's obvious we are different. But, a man can embody feminism and femininity, and he can also embody masculinity. And it's just what you're kind of putting out there. Granted, men tend to be more masculine, over the broader spectrum, and women more feminine, obviously. But I'm really interested in the differences in how you see feminine leadership versus masculine leadership. And, both of them are effective. Obviously, you need to bring both your feminine and your masculine within a leadership role. But when you see people who are more oriented towards their feminine side and towards their masculine side, how do you see that leadership, or how do you see that affecting their leadership, and how does it play out?
Yeah, some of the studying that I've been doing, and I'm trying to rack my brain right now for the body of work that I studied, and I can't remember it, but I want to delineate between unconscious masculine and conscious masculine, and unconscious feminine and conscious feminine. So you could say stereotypically an unconscious man would be arrogant, or stereotypically an unconscious woman would be needy. Every human has both a feminine and masculine energy. And how we've been, as Don Miguel Ruiz says in his book, The Four Agreements, he talks about domestication, how we've been domesticated, meaning where we grew up, what birth order we were, our parents, our school, our education, all those things, trauma that we've had, has us create these brain patterns that set us on a particular trajectory, right? So the conscious masculine is powerful, and so is the conscious feminine, but there's also this experience of holding a safe space, right? Conscious feminine, the intuitive, right? Being able to tap into her innate wisdom and intuition. And so I think for a long time, and I can tell you personally, I worked in a lot of male-dominated industries for most of my career, whether it was politics or energy. My last couple of jobs have been around green energy or stopping coal-fired power plants. And when I started that job out in Colorado, I was one of two females around the table until I began to ask some of our indigenous sisters to join me at the table, because in the tribes that we were working with, they're all matriarchal. It all comes down through the mother, and I'm Jewish, and it all comes down through the matriarchy. So I think for a long time, women have had to think they've had to be like men. But when I say be like men, unconscious male, arrogance, domineering, pushing, because a conscious man is sexy as heck. I mean, he is like powerful and in his truth and creating safety, and he embraces his divine feminine and as well, which is the nurturing aspect, the innate wisdom. Same for women. So I think the work that I do with women is really getting them to understand they can be themselves. That's why I talk about women having the audacity to be themselves. I'm telling you, I went to speak to a group of female engineers, and one of the things they talked about was how they don't get dressed up when they go to work because they're either asked if they have a job interview or if they're going on a date. Because the men don't understand why the women are looking feminine. And I think it's important for women to embrace their beauty, their femininity, and we can be powerhouses all at the same time. As I said to you earlier, I think I said if my clients don't get pissed off with me at least once during the course of our time together, I'm not doing my job, because it's not that I'm tough love, I'm big love when I'm with them. I'm like, look, I'm going to call BS on that. Okay, I've got something to say that's about to pierce through something, or I'll say, stop, you need to stop talking, but this is really important. I go, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm totally bored by the story you're telling. And you keep telling it to yourself, and you keep ingraining those brain patterns, and it keeps coming out of your mouth, and it keeps solidifying that, and you keep creating your future through your speaking. We are what we speak, So I think I would say the way you asked the question, I just want to create a more expansive thinking about this notion of masculine and feminine, and really looking at the conscious masculine, the conscious feminine. And we all have I can be arrogant, I can be pushy, I have unconscious masculine and feminine, I can be needy, I can be whiny, I can be a victim. We all can, right? We all have that inside of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a good way to, I can't remember which book it was. I think it was I'm The Way of the Superior Man. It's a book by, I think, David Data. He deals on the differences between man and woman. It's more of on the sexuality realm, but it's a fascinating read, and it goes into those same things, and everything that you were saying was kind of hitting those bells. And so
Yeah.
I like what you're doing. I like where you're going on your career, and it sounds like you've been through plenty of ups and downs to get there. So I appreciate you being here to share that with us. We have blasted through our 15-minute mark, so I'm going to have to push us forward into the quick question round, where I'm going to ask you quick questions. You give me quick responses. Starts with habits. Habits are the foundation of our life. So if you could point to one habit that you feel has contributed the most to your life today, what would that be?
Meditation, hands down.
Easy. Didn't even hesitate. I love it. Do you have a type of meditation, or is it?
Here's the thing that I've learned is that, so I use the Calm app, but I also, for like 3 years, I was meditating 20 minutes, silent meditation in the morning and in the evening. And then when COVID hit, I had gotten out of that habit, which made me more stressed, less productive, more on edge. And people think you have to just sit quietly, but in fact, you can do a walking meditation where you're not listening to anything. You're just walking and feeling your feet and noticing what's around you. So I practice meditation in some form on a daily basis. It grounds me and has me be present, and that's important to me.
Yep, I love it. Next question is for your younger self. So if you could go back to the Jen who was, let's say, just starting out her political career, just going into that first, probably a mayor's office or whatever it was, go to her, look her in the eyes, and give her one piece of advice moving forward.
Yeah, so it's interesting. This ties back to my work and fascination with imposter syndrome. So I graduated high school when I was 16, started college when I was 16. And so skipped second grade, and I was always an egghead. I was always very, very smart, and things came easy to me. And I would go back to my younger self and say, just because it doesn't come easy to you doesn't mean you won't be good at it. Stick with it, keep practicing, and you'll get it. Now, that would also mean I wouldn't be in the career I'm in now, so who knows? But that's one thing that I've honestly, Gabe, in the last year, really digging into imposter syndrome, I began to recognize for myself that I didn't think was there, but it's more, and see, I always wanted to be an actor. When I was a kid, I didn't pursue it because my mom's like, that's going to be hard. Like, oh, well, I don't want it to be hard. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's never too late. I mean, you're in your prime right now, so I can see you on the big screen at some point. Uh,
Ah.
next one is about books, and you're more than welcome to plug your own book here. But I always ask for two book recommendations, one for whichever topic you're talking about, so leadership, anything that you want to give there, and then the other one is for just general life wisdom.
Oh, that's great, because I actually I'm pulling together a resource box of books for my clients. I'd say two. One is The Big Leap, which has been around for a
Yep.
while, by Gay Hendricks, looking at the differentiation between operating in your zone of competence versus your zone of genius and how to distinguish those two. And the other one that literally is on my bookshelf, and I read it to my clients all the time, is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Don't take things personally. Don't make assumptions. Honor your word and always do your best. But the two about don't take things personally or make assumptions, huge. If we just stop taking things personally and stop making assumptions, as Matisyahu says, one day there'll be no more war. Yeah.
Yep. No, that is one of my favorite books. It's a quick read, and I mean, I'm sure people listening have already read it themselves, but if you haven't, go pick it up. Four Agreements.
Reread it.
One of my reread it. One of my top 10 books. The next one is mentors. So we're never alone on our paths. We always have people walking with us, helping us get to where we need to go. So you don't have to give a person's name, but if you had, if you can think of one mentor in your past who's really shaped your career and shaped your life thus far, what did they do, and kind of how did they help you get where you are today?
I'm going to say the names. I'm going to say two names, Ariana Huffington and Core Masters Berry. So Ariana was on my board of directors when I started a nonprofit in DC, and she was my first client in my first company that I started. And at that time, she was a very far-right Christian conservative back in the day. And Cora Masters Berry, former First Lady of Washington, D.C. But these two women were so polar opposites, and they were both my clients at the time. But how they shaped me is they spoke their truth. It didn't matter what other people said. It didn't matter the criticism that was thrown their way, whether that was something that they expected or unexpected. They always stuck to who they are and were true to themselves. And that made a huge difference for me. There's always times we question that, but I know whenever I'm incongruent with who I truly am and really feel like I have a taproot in the ground, it doesn't matter what's going on around me. I can stick with my truth, and everyone else can disagree with me, and that's okay, because I'm the weird one that is going to be the tall poppy that's going to stick my neck out and be like, oh yeah, orange cow is beautiful.
I love it. Final question. This one's for the listeners. You've given us plenty of great advice and great wisdom that you shared. So I'm sure people want to reach out and get in contact with you. What is the best way for them to do that?
There's a couple ways. So one, I have a quiz on imposter syndrome that people can take to kind of get a sense of the type of imposter they are. And they just go to jencokenquiz.com, JenCoken.com. Let me know they came from the podcast. That would be great. So I know that. And then you can also email me, jen@jencoken.com. Check out my website, jencoken.com. And I can plug my third book, When I Die, Take My Panties, Turning Your Darkest Moments into Your Greatest Gift. So yeah.
Awesome. And I'm sure that third book is on Amazon, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Perfect. And if you want to get in contact with Jen, I will put that URL in the description. So if you click the little more in the mini description there, it'll pop down the full description. In that area, you'll find Jen's URL. Click through, say hi to her. I'm sure she'd appreciate it. So yeah. Jen, again, thank you for hopping on. I had a blast talking with you today.
I had a blast talking with you too, Gabe. Keep it up. This is awesome. You're awesome.
Absolutely. For everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for hopping on the show. You are the reason that we do this, so we appreciate having you here. I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic week. Keep pursuing greatness, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you guys for sticking with us on another episode of the Pursuing Greatness podcast. I hope you got a lot of value out of that guest. Again, the best way to support the show is just to subscribe, like, and share with your friends and family. Also, check out pursuinggreatnesspodcast.com if you want to get more information about what we do and what we offer. I hope you guys have a great day and keep living in integrity with yourselves. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode coming shortly.